got it.
Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Robert Mujica, Director of the Budget, and I want to welcome everyone to the 2024 capital budget hearings. I want to welcome our colleagues from the legislature who are joining us for these formal public hearings, and everyone from the agencies as well. Today's hearing really represents the beginning of the budget process, actually the quick start process. This is the second step after the quick start process, which is the first set of hearings to go over all of the initial spending estimates and revenue estimates. The next step here are the capital budget hearings, then followed by the executive budget presentation. And all of these steps are designed to have a budget that's on time, but also institute a level of transparency and additional information prior to the public budget hearings that the legislature holds in February. These hearings today provide a valuable insight as we prepare for the executive budget while setting up the framework, right, for an open dialogue with the New Yorkers and the legislature to deliver results for all the citizens of the state. Under Governor Hochul's leadership, the 2024 executive budget will build on the sound fiscal foundation of the past year, working cooperatively with the legislature. We're able both to control spending, but also fund a lot of new initiatives that also helped as we get past and recover from the pandemic. As in the past, we look forward to a responsive, collaborative budget process, and consistent with the state constitution and the state finance law, we've asked some agencies to join us today to talk about their budgets. First up, we'll have Tony Riddick, the Chief Information Officer of the Office of Information and Technology Services, who will address the agency's formal capital budget. So with that, we will then have Katie Steger from the Program Director for the Capital Projects for the Council of the Arts on the Council's capital budget. And then after each presentation, I will invite questions from the panelists of the agency heads. So with that, I want to turn it over to our Chief Information Officer, Colonel Riddick.
Thank you so much, Director Mujica and the state legislature, for the opportunity to share a little bit about the work we're doing. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Director Mujica for his service to New Yorkers and wish him well in the new position. Having worked in the Caribbean for a couple of years, I know you'll enjoy the absence of the wind chill, but be careful with wind speed, if you will. Before I start, let me introduce some members of my executive team. In the room with me today, I have our Chief Technology Officer and Deputy for Technology, Rajiv Rao, our Deputy Chief Information Officer, Jen Lorenz. She's our Deputy for Operations. Marcy Stevens, the Deputy General Counsel, and Mike Ajovla-Sivas, Deputy Chief Information Security Officer. At ITS, we have nearly 3,000 hardworking employees located in 60 New York communities, and the vast majority are IT professionals. We maintain major financial and regulatory applications for key state agencies. More than 5,000 applications in total across 53 state agencies. We manage the state's data center and have responsibility for over 1,400 miles of fiber optic cable, which helps power state phones, computers, laptops, and much, much more. Here's one of those hardworking teams now receiving an award at the recent New York Digital Summit for the Cannabis Licensing System Project. In sum, the overall health of the IT project portfolio is stronger than it's been in recent times. Since the beginning of the last fiscal year, we have closed a total of 62 projects, and many more are on the verge of being completed. We now have 213 active projects. Nearly 3/4 of all projects are in green and successfully moving towards completion. And just 3% of active projects have run into timeline or budgetary challenges. The ITS teams, along with our agency partners, are actively solutioning those projects to make sure they move forward appropriately. ITS has been working to support a number of state legislative mandates, including the Gender Recognition Act, where we are assisting agencies with the work necessary to allow name and gender changes in state databases. It was ITS that provided the technology necessary to stand up a new agency, the Office of Cannabis Management, on an expedited timeline. Recently, we partnered with the Public Service Commission to enhance the broadband mapping website, which resulted in additional federal funding for New York State. Meanwhile, we assisted state agencies in implementing language translation services for their websites in the 12 most commonly spoken non-English languages. COVID pages were first translated, and 84 public-facing sites have now been identified and translated for the public as well. New York State government should be accessible to the people, and this is a great step forward. The work we're doing at ITS is helping agencies better serve New Yorkers and their families. The creation of a web directory of New York State farms and farm products to promote the agricultural industry strengthens farms and provides consumers with access to the best products. And that's simply one example. And we've partnered with the state's Department of Parks and Recreation and Historic Preservation to enhance the Parks Explorer Pass to include improved search capabilities and new interactive mapping. The transition from the state's current welfare management system to the new integrated eligibility system is important to the state, to the legislature, and to many vulnerable New Yorkers. We have strong new leadership at IES, and I have completed a number of important benchmarks within the last year. I meet regularly with them to make sure that they're receiving the support they need. This long-term project will create a no wrong door path to state services and is on track to be completed by 2026. ITS is quickly moving to protect the data privacy of all New Yorkers and establishing a more robust enterprise risk management framework. To do so, we have made two important hires, starting with the state's first ever Chief Privacy Officer, Michelle Jones. She is responsible for building a statewide program to include new policies and processes, and the new Director of Enterprise Risk Management, John Cody, will broaden our view of risk and how to address it. We pay a lot of attention to cybersecurity, of course, and that's appropriate. But thinking about how we collect and use New Yorkers' information is just as important to secure our posture and an essential step in the evolution of the state's digital service delivery model. The state budget is allowing ITS to continue with the digitization of state services, modernize the systems of a number of state agencies, and put in place comprehensive security solutions that keep our network secure. When it comes to digitization, $10 million in the fiscal year 23 budget is allowing us to rationalize logons so New Yorkers don't have to remember multiple passwords and multiple agencies when accessing state services. This should be simple and seamless. We're using the Empire Digital Pass to further reduce fraud and giving New Yorkers the option to store their credentials on their devices. The ongoing tax system modernization includes 11 separate projects. The requirements gathering phase of 5 of those projects will be completed by December, and the remaining 6 are now in the design phase. In addition, we have held our first Java boot camp to ensure developers have the skills they need to thrive. The Java boot camp took students fresh out of college and put them through an intensive 60-day Java training camp, sending the tax mod project some folks with needed skills. Our second boot camp targeted specifically existing ITS staff. When it comes to cybersecurity, the threats are more numerous and sophisticated than ever before. Credit goes to Governor Hochul for prioritizing this evolving issue. The fiscal 23 budget increased our overall cyber funding to $61.5 million, allowing us to dramatically strengthen our defenses. We have ensured security is a priority on the front end and accelerated our security reviews of new agency applications, increased penetration testing to identify potential threats before and not after they occur, and have stepped up our cyber awareness education campaigns so every employee can be the cyber warrior we need to win this fight. As you can see, we provide layered defenses of the state's network and both proactive and reactive management against cyber attacks. When an incident occurs, we have detailed and proven processes for how we identify and contain the threat and then recover from the incident. We first make a determination, identify the scope and severity, notify all those who need to know and need to share. We contain the threat, and then we review, remediate, and recover from it. Working with our partner, the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, we are rolling our endpoint detection technology to continue at no cost to them this year. Made possible by $30 million in the budget, it is a critical resource that is allowing local governments to better protect themselves. In addition, ITS continues to provide expert strategic advice when an incident occurs impacting local governments and others. We established the Joint Security Operations Center in Brooklyn, a first of its kind hub for cyber coordination and threat sharing, and now the JSOC is staffed 24/7, 365 days a year. The vision of Governor Hochul and JSOC will be a national model for state and local cyber collaboration. I've been down there several times to ensure we are all working cohesively in support of this mission. I want to dive a little deeper on what the state is offering participating counties. Those who opt in are receiving automated cyber event alerts and immediate response options, security event logging, whole of state threat hunting capabilities, and centralized cyber support. As someone who once taught cybersecurity courses at the National Defense University and is now charged with running the agency responsible for protecting the state's system from intrusion, I know the threat is real. And New York State is leaning forward and combating that threat as much as possible. While we have made progress, there are challenges ahead. Our highest priority is the recruitment and retention of our employees. The worker shortage is something every agency is dealing with, and specifically tech organizations throughout the country. But we are aggressively working to reverse that trend and strengthen our workforce, adding new HR resources, leveraging social media, building our existing relationships with SUNY and CUNY, and even developing an ITS mentoring program, which provides our employees with the communications and leadership skills they need to grow, move up the ladder, and stay with ITS in the future. In addition, cybersecurity continues to be a challenge. It's a constantly evolving threat that will continue to expend our resources and our time. In the new year, we are expecting to roll out new and agile defenses and continue to modernize legacy applications, which continue to be a vulnerability for government at every level. And with that, I'll turn it over to you for questions. Thank you very much for your attention. And thank you, ITS executive team members, for always doing the best you can. Happy holidays as well.
Colonel, thank you very much for that presentation. I think as you can see, ITS hits almost every state agency. And post-pandemic, if you weren't already moving in the direction of having New Yorkers as they interact with state agencies, technology becomes more and more a regular part, if not the only way that many New Yorkers are interacting with government. So the work of your office is critically important and more important, every year as we go by. as you can see from his presentation, both the delivery of services are critically important, and also protecting the data, our government, right, and the information that we have, from those who want to do damage. It has also become a big part of the office's mission, along with the Department of Homeland Security. So thank you. We'll go to questions from the panelists here. I think we have the Ways and Means Committees from both houses and also the Senate. I'll start with Blake. If you have any, Blake Washington, Secretary of the Ways and Means Committee, if you have any questions.
No questions, Mr. Director. I just want to say thanks for all the work to ITS. Very thorough. You accomplished a pretty important mission to all we do. So just thank you very much.
On behalf of my team, you're welcome and thank you.
All right. I don't see any other. I have a couple of questions myself, Colonel. Just on the cybersecurity front, because I think that's become, it's in the news more and more, and we're seeing, both agencies have had incidents, local governments have had incidents. When it comes to cybersecurity, I guess what is your biggest concern or your focus? I'm sure it's something that keeps you up at night. So,
of course, the governor's priority. Of course, with the governor's priority of establishing the Joint Security Operations Center, I sleep better at night because it gives us a whole of state approach and oversight of the entire state enterprise. We've worked collectively with state entities, local governments, and we work hand in hand with our new cyber guru, Colin Ahorn, in establishing a whole of state security approach. If one asks me what keeps me up at night, I'll say my job keeps me up at night, and I'm thankful for that because our job is to make sure it's working 24/7. What gives me restful peace is that we have the dedicated professionals and the knowledge and the tool set and the support from leadership to get the job done. Cyber will always be a challenge. Staying one town ahead of the posse is what we're chartered to do, and that's what we will do. Thank you. And that was a great question.
Thank you. Thank you, Colonel. Just one other, because I mentioned this right as the pandemic is over. I know a lot of our agencies moved to electronic ways of interacting with New Yorkers. And I know your office was part of the solution in creating new technology solutions, right, in order to have that interaction happen. So as we continue to leverage technology in order to serve New Yorkers, if you can just talk a little bit about some of the new ways that you've helped the agencies and particular agencies, right, interact and move more of their services online.
One thing that is important to me is a strategic plan and having a vision, understanding what the risks are and what new technologies are available, what technologies are considered leading edge and what technologies are considered bleeding edge. I've been blessed with a team of technologists and professionals who provide the insight and assist in developing a vision for the whole of state approach of making sure that we have the most efficient, most cost-effective and secure solutions that are on the market today. With regards to the technologies that we plan to employ, our strategic plan mirrors our 5-year roadmap. It's important for everyone to understand that pie in the sky technology that you think will be there 20 years from now, like the George Jetson flying car, is unrealistic. So we have to look closer in and predict what the state will need based on the priorities of the governor and based on the priorities and needs of New Yorkers. So it's important that we lean forward. Moving from legacy platforms to new solutions, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, security as a service is where we're leaning forward in the future right now. That's within 5 years.
Okay. Well, thank you, Colonel. Again, I just want to say thank you for your service to our country right now. And it's also reassuring to have you, there guarding us in this respect too. So
well, thank you so much, Director.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your presentation. And from there, we'll go on to our second presenter. And again, thank you for your team as well. We'll go on to our second presenter.
I just have a question I'd like to ask.
Okay, go ahead,
My name's
Andrew.
Andrew Tranzo. I'm from Minority Ways and Means. I understand ITS is working with the Department of Labor to upgrade its unemployment insurance systems. Would you be able to speak to the progress that's been made so far in upgrading those systems and provide a timeline on when that system will be fully operational?
Andrew, I think that's an excellent question. I work with Commissioner Reardon. We meet once a week to discuss the priorities of DOL. With regards to the timeline, I'll make sure I get a copy of that, capturing the milestones and the major achievements that we have accomplished so far, and some of what I consider the long poles in the tent challenges that we have to lean forward to and put the right energies into to succeed. But I can assure you, we have a great working relationship with Commissioner Reardon. Again, I speak with her once or twice a week. My technicians speak with her technical advisors, and we're moving in the right direction with that. But I'll make sure I get that information to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I see we're joined by Assemblywoman Helene Weinstein as well. I don't know if you have any questions, or as we move to the next presenter, again, if there's a raise your hand function on the interface. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. If not, I will again. Thank you again, Colonel. And we're going to move on to our second presenter today.
Roger, travel safely, Robert. We'll see you on the high ground.
Thank you. See you. Katie Steger. She is the Program Director of Capital Projects for the Council on the Arts. Ms. Steger, can you go ahead with your presentation? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Director Mujica, members of the Senate Finance, Assembly Ways and Means Committees, Chairs Kruger and Weinstein. Thank you so much for the invitation to address you today. I'm Katie Steger, the Director of Capital Projects for the New York State Council on the Arts, also known as NYSCA, and I am presenting today on behalf of Mara Manis, NYSCA's Executive Director. NYSCA, our council, and the nonprofit arts sector of New York are so grateful for the governor and state legislature's robust investment in the arts this past year, recognizing the critical impact of arts and culture across our state. The arts are an economic powerhouse, with New York's creative economy contributing $126 billion annually, constituting 7% of the state's economy. This is more than each of the retail, construction, or transportation sectors. Additionally, the New York arts and culture sector is comprised of more than 500,000 workers. Investment in the sector delivers a robust return as a driver of the health of our state's workforce, economy, and people. The impact of a single performance, gallery opening, or venue improvement has a wide ripple effect, creating a stream of revenue and jobs for Main Street retail, restaurants, and hospitality that power local economies across New York State. Additionally, many arts organizations provide services beyond their mission-based programming. They serve as community centers, after-school programming sites, and cultural anchors for downtown revitalization initiatives, further increasing their impact. Founded in 1960 as the first state arts agency in the country, NYSCA is one of the leading sources of public funding for the vibrant arts and culture sector across the state. NYSCA's primary focus is grant making to nonprofit arts organizations and artists across 62 state counties. Our direct funding supports 1,500 organizations and artists annually through approximately 3,200 grants. Our indirect funding, which is administered through regrant partnerships, supports an additional 1,300 organizations and artists. NYSCA's FY23 capital appropriation, stands at $50 million for small and mid-sized grants to projects of all sizes. On September 29th, 2022, Governor Hochul announced an unprecedented capital suballocation of $100 million for large projects to be awarded through a multi-year program. The current capital opportunity application launched on September 30th, 2022, and closes January 12th, 2023. Awards will be approved in March 2023 and announced in April. Capital projects funding is transformative for organizations and supports an incredible array of facility renovations and improvements that bolster organizational health, welcome larger audiences of every kind, and promote sustainability, facility accessibility, and physical health and safety. It is rare for arts nonprofits to access capital support from traditional arts funders, such as private foundations. This means organizations rely most heavily on individual donors and public dollars for much needed capital projects. The pool of capital resources is even more limited for organizations outside of New York City. Nonprofit arts organizations are often housed in older buildings with significant maintenance, energy efficiency, and accessibility challenges, as well as historic preservation and climate change mitigation needs. More recently, the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the arts significantly, resulting in important lessons regarding the health and safety practices of arts spaces. These include the need for very flexible audience spaces, as well as improved ventilation and air filtration systems. Arts facility needs range in size and scope, but the impact of each project is far-reaching, from projects of limited scale like HVAC installations, wheelchair ramp construction, and boiler replacements, to full multi-story building adaptive reuse projects and the construction of entirely new facilities. Here on the screen, you can see NYSCA's capital appropriations from our first round in FY18 to our current FY23 round. Grant sizes vary with consideration to the appropriation level, with larger grants awarded in the years we have received a larger appropriation. On this slide, you can see a breakdown of our projects to date. Between FY18 and FY22, NYSCA awarded 158 capital project grants to 149 organizations across all 10 regions of New York, totaling $50 million. Through both our direct and capital funding, NYSCA supports mostly small organizations. The majority of capital projects grants, 68% of them, were awarded to organizations with budgets under $5 million. And we're pleased to share that 67% of our capital grantees are located outside of New York City. To date, 40 capital projects have been completed. Many of our FY18 and 19 projects faced stoppages due to COVID shutdowns, ongoing supply chain issues, and escalating costs due to inflation. But despite these setbacks, projects have restarted, and we are looking forward to several new openings in the coming year. And I will share several project examples later in this presentation. I would also add that in FY22, NYSCA awarded another 43 $10,000 facilities grants to organizations with budgets under $1 million from NYSCA's ATL funding in an effort to be responsive to the needs of many smaller organizations. State priorities have informed our capital guidelines all along. Our guidelines currently include the following as priorities for funding: accessibility, which is to make arts facilities accessible for a diverse set of artists and participants, including projects like the construction of ramps for mobility access and ADA compliant restrooms. To date, 55 NYSCA capital grants have been awarded for accessibility compliance projects or projects that included accessibility compliance components. So of these, 30 were ADA specific exclusively, and 25 were larger projects with ADA components. The next priority, increasing access for underserved areas. This is to expand funding into regions and underserved communities that don't have consistent access to cultural offerings. Environmental sustainability, which refers to projects that demonstrate environmental stewardship and/or sustainable building practices, improving efficiency and mitigating the effects of climate change on a building's capacity. Projects include the replacement of windows, new HVAC systems, and refurbishment or sealing of exterior building envelopes. To date, 27 capital grants have been awarded for energy efficiency and environmental sustainability projects, or for components within larger projects. 13 have been energy efficiency specific, and 15 have been larger projects with those components. Structural and historical improvements to address issues of building stabilization and historic preservation. Artistry, to support projects that increase the range and quality of art that can be created. For example, the construction of new rehearsal spaces, dressing rooms, and stages, as well as the installation of new lighting, sound, and projection systems. Organizational health. This is for projects that make capital investments that will reduce operating costs and/or provide new opportunities for revenue generation. Health and safety, to support projects that address known health and safety deficiencies. This has become a primary concern for many applicants during the COVID-19 pandemic. Critical facility improvements will allow many organizations to welcome back audiences and better mitigate future challenges around health and safety. Diversity helps to support organizations that make plans to diversify organizational leadership at the executive and board level. And finally, community development. This is specific to the large capital projects opportunity and relates to projects that will contribute to local workforce development and/or expansion, tourism growth, and/or placemaking and downtown revitalization. For the next segment of our presentation, we're going to share examples from 7 NISCA capital grantees. We'd like to highlight the specifics of some of the individual projects and their impact on these organizations and communities. Some of these are complete and some are in progress at various stages. To begin, we'll start with the George Eastman Museum in Rochester. This is one of our state's cultural anchors, with its collection of rare film and photography serving as a reflection of our collective histories and drawing visitors from across the globe. The museum's comprehensive campus renovation project, totaling $5.75 million, received an FY18 grant of $1 million from NISCA and supported the construction of the Thomas Tisher Visitor Center. The new steel and glass visitor center transforms the visitor experience, which now reflects their world-class collection. As you can see from the before photo on the top, visitors previously had to queue outside to gain admission to the museum's accessible entrance. But the new Tisher Visitor Center, as pictured below, creates a completely new and accessible main entrance for all visitors with a spacious lobby that can easily accommodate crowds and queues. The George Eastman team executed a beautiful contemporary design that works in concert with and highlights the historic architecture that they already had. This project included the construction of the Welcome Center and admissions area, a new parking area as well, which, as you can see from the before photo, had degraded over time. The project also included a new museum cafe and store, which you can see in the before photo on the top right, and the after photo on the bottom right of the slide. New accessible restrooms, accessibility improvements throughout the entire building, and the installation of a new HVAC system. All of these are critically important to making the collections of the museum accessible to anyone. This project had a direct impact of $5.75 million on the Rochester area and created 7 new permanent positions for the museum. The George Eastman Museum also received a grant in FY22 of $382,000 to make critical improvements to the Louis B. Mayer Conservation Center, which will enable the preservation of its internationally acclaimed and rare nitrate film collection. This collection includes historically important original prints of films, which include The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind, among others, and is significant to film lovers, historians, and archivists, and educators from around the world. The Dryden Theater at the Eastman is the only US theater outside of California equipped to project pre-1952 nitrate films in their original form. Eastman also hosts a biannual nitrate film festival, one of the only in operation. In 2022, they welcomed a record number of festival goers from across the US and 8 countries. To give you a sense of the importance of this project, nitrate film carries a significant fire risk because of the materials with which it is produced, and a high energy consumption is required to store the film at appropriate and fire-safe temperatures. This project addresses both of those issues and includes the installation of 2 industrial-sized chillers, improved insulation, and exterior envelope improvements, which will improve the climate and energy controls in the Conservation Center. The anticipated completion date for this project is December 2023, and you can see the exterior of the Conservation Center building on the top right, as well as people handling the nitrate films and their canisters on the bottom. Our next project is the Everson Museum in Syracuse, New York. The Everson was the first museum to dedicate itself to the collection of American art. And Everson received a $634,000 grant in FY18 to support significant renovations to the 300-seat auditorium that's housed within the museum, which was designed by world-renowned architect I.M. Pei in 1968. That's a small tidbit of information. This was the first museum that Pei ever designed before his famous design for the Louvre Museum in Paris, among others. This project included a new permanent seating system, as you can see from the photos on the slide. The entire seating system was removed and replaced. You'll see the original image on the next slide. This project also included a new electrical and audio-visual lighting system, updated backstage areas and dressing rooms, renovated lobby bathrooms, and more, which resulted in a drastically improved and accessible visitor and artist experience. You can see in the photos on the slide that the general improvements in the auditorium lighting affected not just the stage theatrical lighting, quite visible from the improvements that they undertook. The total project cost was $1.6 million. Since the completion in 2018, the museum saw a 300% increase in auditorium use in the first year and has become a true hub of activity for the Syracuse community. To date, they have hosted over 140 events, from performances to lectures, from educational programs to naturalization ceremonies, and the auditorium enables the Everson to further expand its role as a critical driver of art spending in the region, which totaled $99 million annually in a 2018 Central New York impact study. Our next grantee is the Adirondack Historical Association. And for those of you who have been to the Adirondacks, you may know it as the Adirondack Experience, or the Museum on Blue Mountain Lake, or simply as ADX. ADX is one of the largest cultural institutions in Northern New York and holds the largest collection of historical artifacts, fine and decorative arts, and research materials that document the history and culture of the unique Adirondack region. ADX is currently undergoing a significant and multi-phase facility renovation project for their campus, which is comprised of 23 buildings with 170,000 square feet of space across 121 acres, plus a 28,000 square foot collection storage facility, which is housed off-site. Phase 1 of this campus-wide project cost $10 million and included the new construction of 19,000 square feet of exhibition space, new elevators, and a new hiking trail. As part of the second phase, which totaled $1.5 million, NYSCA awarded a $500,000 FY18 grant to support the replacement of the 50-year-old HVAC system in a separate 45,000 square foot gallery space. This critical HVAC upgrade ensures that ADX is meeting year-round environmental conservation standards. It will also require less manual monitoring, allow the organization to rotate exhibitions within their galleries more easily, and display the full range of their diverse collection while maintaining the comfort of their visitors. You can see in the photos on the slide the HVAC system being lowered into the building, and then the nearly invisible but always felt benefits of a well-functioning HVAC system being enjoyed by guests in the gallery on the bottom. And on the next slide, you can also see another view of the gallery space where the new HVAC was installed. ADX is located in a fairly geographically remote region, delivering arts programming and educational opportunities to more than 5,500 visitors annually. It generates $7.2 million each year in expenditures from the organization and audiences to its region, which is a boon to the local economy. The next phase of the renovation will include roof replacement and the development of 2 permanent exhibition spaces. You can see one of these spaces under construction in the photo on the right. The total project cost is $5.4 million. NYSCA awarded ADX a $562,000 FY22 capital project grant for this critical renovation to their 5,800 square foot permanent collection space, where they will open Artists and Inspiration in the Wild, the first permanent exhibition devoted to their fine and decorative art collections. This exhibition creates a one-of-a-kind destination for New York and Adirondack art, featuring masterpieces by Thomas Cole, Rockwell Kent, Edna West Teal, Seneca Ray Stoddard, Ernest Snow, and more. Installation of the exhibition will involve completely refurbishing the galleries, including the installation of a state-of-the-art HVAC system in this building as well. Its MERV 15 filtration will protect both the priceless collections and the equally priceless visitors, with their new safety considerations raised by the COVID-19 pandemic. This project is anticipated to be completed by July 2023. Our next grantee is the Caroga Arts Collective in the Mohawk Valley. The organization presents year-round music programming, including the Caroga Lake Music Festival, with over 50 music events annually, ranging from classical to pop to jazz. Caroga Arts is a relatively young organization, and since its inception in 2016, it has helped elevate the Mohawk Valley region as a growing tourist destination. As a region, Mohawk Valley has the lowest concentration of arts organizations in the state, and 16.4% of the population lives below the poverty line. Karoga Arts was already recognized as a driver of arts tourism in the area before the pandemic, with 2018 accommodation revenue increasing significantly in just 1 year. In the context of these challenges for the region, Karoga Arts Collective's $5.3 million project will create a year-round home for an interdisciplinary artist community and reignite Karoga as a cultural destination through the power of the arts, bringing much-needed tourism dollars to the area. In 2022, NISCA awarded Karoga Arts Collective a $1 million capital grant to support the construction of a new outdoor amphitheater on their lakeside historic property, Sherman's Amusement Park, which includes the construction of an orchestra-ready stage, new green rooms, dressing rooms, storage spaces, and a climate-controlled piano room. And you can see a rendering of what the new amphitheater will look like on the bottom, as opposed to how visitors experience Sherman's Park currently on the top. And on the next slide, you can see the amphitheater rendering from Karoga Lake and an aerial view of the park. With this new space, Karoga will be able to present a wider range of programming, including new genres, artists, and ideas to the community, driving an increase in ticket revenue for the organization. This project is an excellent example of how arts organizations use their facilities to activate communities and how state-of-the-art construction and improvements can help attract audiences and artists who have limited access to those facilities nearby. The anticipated completion date is October 2022. Moving on to the Buffalo AKG Art Museum, formerly known as the Albright Knox Art Gallery. This is the 6th oldest public art institution in the United States. A major gallery for modern and contemporary art, AKG is one of the major cultural tentpoles of our state. AKG launched their museum development and expansion project in 2016, beginning construction in November 2019. The ribbon cutting for the completed project is slated for May 25th, 2023. There's an aerial shot of the campus before the project began on the top, and a project rendering on the bottom, which my colleague Abby will guide us through with her cursor. With this project, AKG is renovating their 2 existing historic buildings, enclosing a courtyard by installing a sculptural roof designed by world-renowned artist Olafur Eliasson. This will create a year-round functional indoor space, which they don't currently have. AKG is also constructing an underground parking structure to reclaim the space that was previously occupied by the old parking area, as you can see in the image on the top. And the space will now be used for 30,000 square feet of new exhibition space, as well as the outdoor space for visitors and the community, seamlessly integrating the campus with the surrounding Olmsted Park. More renderings of the completed project are visible on the next slide. The top photo is the newly constructed additional 30,000 square feet of gallery space, and the bottom shows a view from beneath the stunning sculptural roof installation. In 2019, NISCA awarded a $720,000 capital grant toward the campus-wide project. The portion of the work funded by NISCA specifically addresses the safety and comfort of all visitors through renovations, including gentle ramps, ADA-compliant restrooms, and expanded elevator cars, creating a seamless journey for all visitors, regardless of physical ability. There is also a significant state investment in this project beyond NISCA, with approximately $46 million committed through ESD, Parks, DASNY, the state legislature, and the governor. The return on investment is significant, and this transformative project has the potential to have the largest impact on cultural tourism in Western New York for years to come. AKG conservatively estimates a $36 million annual economic impact from the expanded Buffalo AKG, a roughly 42% increase from prior to the expansion. They also estimate a one-time construction-related direct impact of $281 million. Upon reopening, AKG anticipates between 160 and 190,000 visitors annually, which is an increase from 120 to 130,000 pre-expansion. This project will also create 79 new full-time positions for the museum, in addition to part-time and secondary employment. Our 6th grantee today is the Chocolate Factory Theater, which is dedicated to the development and public presentation of performance in Queens. They recently acquired a new permanent space for the first time in their organization's history in the Dutch Kills neighborhood of Long Island City. This is an adaptive reuse project of a single-story former industrial building, the exterior of which you can see near the top image on the screen. The building will undergo a complete gut renovation to become a fully functioning, accessible performing arts venue. A $900,000 grant from NISCA in FY22 will provide a substantial support for the first phase of this project, including replacing the building's floor and installing accessible bathrooms and a new HVAC system. Just to orient you to what you're looking at, Abby will use her cursor to point to the large industrial doors in the in the top image. And on the bottom, you can see that same door in the rendering from inside the new entrance space. This new home for the Chocolate Factory will bring a permanent performing arts venue to an area of Long Island City where development has been more limited, creating greater access to arts and culture while generating significant revenue for the community. And even though the project has not begun, the organization's economic impact is already between $500,000 and $1 million annually. The Chocolate Factory is deeply committed to supporting artists and local workers in the area, with 70% of their $1 million operating budget allocated to wages to local artists and residents who work in the space. 2 full-time positions have already been created from this project, and upon completion, they expect to add 5 to 10 additional FTEs, bringing additional work opportunities to the neighborhood. They currently reach 5,000 audience members annually and anticipate 100% audience growth for performances, a 30% increase in residencies for artists, and a 75% increase in on-site community programming in the new space. Anticipated completion date is 2025. Final grantee that we want to highlight today is Mark Morris Dance Group. This is an internationally renowned dance ensemble led by choreographer Mark Morris. Their dance center, which opened in 2001, is a permanent home for the company, but also provides subsidized rehearsal space for other local artists and dance classes in multiple genres with live accompaniment for members of the public of all ages and abilities. The multi-story building was one of the original anchors for the downtown Brooklyn BAM Cultural District, now a thriving hub of cultural activity, which draws visitors from across the city and far beyond. Mark Morris's programming is highly responsive to its community's expressed needs, from inclusive arts engagement for New York City public schools and New York City Housing Authority residents to workforce training and youth mentorship programs. As part of a larger capital campaign for critical improvements to the building, Mark Morris received a $1 million NISCA grant, which supported the construction of 2 new rehearsal studios and public courtyard and lounge spaces. The photos currently on the screen show the studios while they were originally under construction. And we share this project because it's an excellent example of how grantees provide different services in their communities. Additionally, this rehearsal studio construction project is a terrific demonstration of the many hyper-specific needs that performance, rehearsal, and exhibition spaces must take into account in any given scope of work. In this case, dance studios require sprung floors to protect dancers' bodies and large spaces with high ceilings and no columns or structures that could impede movement. These spaces are notoriously difficult to come by, especially with older buildings. And as you can see in the photos on the screen on this slide, Mark Morris has met these needs beautifully. The top photo is of a completed studio, and the bottom image is a studio with participants of multiple ages in an open house African dance class. One of the 2 studios, Studio E as it is called, provides a fully accessible home for the organization's internationally acclaimed Dance for PD program, which serves people living with Parkinson's disease. Dance for PD offers research-backed dance classes from the center, both in person and virtually. They also offer classes through a network of partners and associates in more than 300 communities, 46 states, and 25 countries across 6 continents. In Mark Morris's words, Dance for PD strives to increase coordination, balance, flexibility, and strength through music and movement from a broad range of dance styles. In classes led by professionally trained dancers and musicians, participants experience the grace, fluidity, and power of dance in a social, joyful, and supportive environment. With the construction of these 2 new spaces, Mark Morris has added 40 additional classes per week. That's a 20% increase from their previous offerings. Beyond serving its local community, Mark Morris also plays a critical role for the dance community in New York City by providing rehearsal space at much lower cost than typical market rates. A critically important service in a city where rehearsal space is extremely difficult to come by, and what exists is often cost prohibitive for artists working on a budget. This new subsidized rehearsal space has resulted in a 30% increase in artists and companies served by the program, which is also funded by NYSCA. All told, Mark Morris is now able to serve up to 100,000 people per year with the completion of this project. So that concludes our grantee highlights portion of the presentation, but of course there are 149 additional projects that are at different stages of progress across the state. And as we prepare to close the application cycle on our 5th round of capital on January 12th, NYSCA continues to seek ways to make our process even more responsive to the ever-changing needs of our field. Since receiving our first capital appropriation in 2018, NYSCA has developed a capital project department, which I am honored to lead, that oversees the application and review process, as well as the ever-expanding portfolio of capital projects that are still underway. We have adjusted application guidelines, streamlined the application and reporting processes, and continue to produce and host informational webinars and office hour sessions, all while providing regular one-on-one support for applicants and grantees throughout the year. For our FY23 opportunity, we have welcomed 700 attendees to our live capital projects information webinar and more than 200 attendees to date at our virtual office hours, which will continue through January. Additionally, we are pleased to share that nearly less than 1 month out from the deadline, there are more than 170 applications already in progress. Following the application deadline, we will conduct an extensive peer panel review process to evaluate proposals. Awards are expected to be approved in March by the Council and announced in April 2023. NYSCA is proud to offer capital funding to the arts and culture sector of New York, and honored to have received the $100 million suballocation from ESD to fulfill the unmet needs of large capital projects from across our state. This new level of funding recognizes the significant impact of the arts and culture sector on the health of New Yorkers and our economy. In turn, NYSCA capital grantees create opportunities for sustainable growth and ensure continued access to arts and culture for all New Yorkers and our visitors for decades to come, all of which play a critical role in driving our collective recovery and revitalization. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you today, and I now welcome your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Steger, for that very informative presentation. Do we have any questions from any of the participants? I think the chair has a question.
Not a question. I just wanted to thank NYSCA for the presentation. I say I now have some places I have to visit on my next upstate. I've been to Everson. I see the difference it's made there. But I really want to thank you for, I know one of the concerns that a number of my colleagues had expressed is how some of these smaller institutions get closed out because of the funding for the larger institutions. So I wanted to just really say thank you. Clearly, it looks like that word has been heard and that a lot of these smaller groups are now being funded. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. It's a high priority for us.
Thank you, Chair Weinstein. Mr. O'Brien.
Thanks, Director, and thank you, Katie, for your presentation. My question is regarding the new $100 million sub-allocation for the large projects that was announced in September. Will these be competitive grants utilizing an RFP, or are they going to go directly to the local art councils who will then disperse their networks?
No, they are competitive grants that will go through our exact same RFP process. We have the same guideline publication, we have the same office hour and webinar structure, and then we will have the same peer review process. The only difference is that ESD will conduct a cost benefit analysis of those applications, which will be used to inform the scoring on our end.
Sure, got it. Thank you very much, and thank you, Director.
Thank you. So, Mr. Eager, can you just elaborate just briefly, just what is the selection process? How are projects selected?
Absolutely. Happy to answer that. Thank you. NISCA offers an open application process. It's widely advertised and accepts applications from any organization that meets our basic set of eligibility requirements, which includes being a nonprofit arts and cultural organization that has a proposed capital project at a facility that it controls with a primary purpose of providing arts and cultural programming to the public. And at the beginning of each grant cycle, we publish extensive guidelines that detail eligibility requirements and selection criteria. We provide extensive support, as I mentioned, during the period between publication of the guidelines and the deadline for submitting applications. This includes webinars, but also open office hours that I lead and answer questions, one-on-one support. Once applications are submitted, we convene review panels to evaluate and score each application. And we consider our panel review to be a critical means by which we keep the selection process as objective and rigorous as possible. Each panel is comprised of individuals with appropriate expertise to evaluate each aspect of the application. That includes architects, engineers, nonprofit finance specialists, arts organization executives with experience managing capital projects, construction managers, and then technical professionals like lighting and sound designers, technical directors with experience in theatrical equipment. The panelists then score the applications on our 3 overarching criteria. That's technical and design components of the project, managerial and fiscal elements of the proposal, plus the capacity of the organization, and then access and relevance of the project to the organization's community. The panelists review and pre-score each application individually, and then they convene with NISCA staff to discuss each application in detail and then rescore if necessary based on their discussion. The applications that do not meet our eligibility thresholds are removed from consideration. And this year, as I said, for the large capital applications, ESD will conduct its benefit cost analysis for each project. And then those results are weighted at 25% and incorporated into the applicant's final score. The finalized panel scores are averaged to create a list of projects that are ranked. And to this list, we apply additional weights based on the priority categories that we publish in our guidelines. So that includes prioritizing small and mid-sized organizations, areas outside of New York City, and those with lower concentrations of arts organizations, as well as organizations that have not previously received significant NISCA capital support. So this ensures that our funding reaches a wider set of organizations and a larger number of communities across the state.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eager. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, this is going to conclude our presentations for today. Thank you, Mr. Eager, very much for your presentation. And today's hearings were an excellent first step towards real building our trust in government. The presentations are a real opportunity to question the agency leadership and help build a more transparent, trusted relationship between both the panelists, people and the government that work for them. Agencies have provided the framework for an open dialogue that will help us deliver results for New Yorkers in the enacted budget that the governor plans to present in the coming weeks. I want to thank all of the presenters and their agencies for their continuous efforts to serve New Yorkers as we continue our long march towards progress and prosperity. Not just those who have participated today, but all of the agencies, including the ones that are not participating over the years, doing important work. So it's an honor and a pleasure to preside over these hearings. Thank you very much. This concludes the hearings for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.